Good morning, YouTubers, Facebook people, and those on Rumble. Today is October 1st, 2025, and this is News with a View, episode 137. I'd like to make a correction to one of my podcasts the other day when I said there was no insurrection, and Robert from New York said the Proud Boys and some others were charged with a form of insurrection, and that is correct. So, when I said there was no insurrection, and I did not clarify that, is that the charges should never have been insurrection. You could have had criminal trespass and take it all the way up the ladder from there, but insurrection, no. But nevertheless, that's what they were charged with, and eventually that will be revisited. Of course, they've been pardoned or sentences commuted, and on some of them. The ones that committed truly violent acts, some of those people have faced consequences, and some have even been killed while they did other violent acts. So, okay. In today's episode, we're going to discuss, of course, the budget. We know who we blame for that. Supreme Court, a hands down ruling for Trump. The immigration, what immigration officials are finding out. So, there's one other thing. Of course, people still being fired over Charlie Kirk comments. Judge Elaine Cannon's, she's back in the news. And Chicago mayor, who praises a killer of a police officer, said that she was a very important person. So we'll get to that today. I take all my stories from the news. I am not a news gatherer, and I will make light of some things. I am a conservative-leaning podcast, so I will look at these with a conservative jaundice eye and see how they impact and how they fit in from the progressive liberal Democrats, which are all the same. If you're a Democrat, you're a progressive. How that fits into what is currently the Trump administration's agenda, and how they. And the first one, of course, is going to be Democrats' failure to approve a budget that has now shut the government down. Is all on the Democrats. The budget hang-up for the progressives is health care funding for illegals, presidential spending power, and foreign aid spending removed from the president's one big beautiful bill. The Democrats want all they lost on that bill restored. This just shows how unrealistic the left is, still clueless, even after the November 5th, 2024 defeat. Fellas, you lost. And you lost the majority. You lost the houses. you're in for a bad time here. Now, if you want to use whatever little power you have left to shut the government down, that's great. Go ahead. You do that like you have. Democrats handed the administration a huge win, not only in the political arena, because everything will be pointing, hey, we had a budget. They turned it down. But now the OMB, Office of Management and Budget, can cut departments almost at will. Everything Doge couldn't do now can be done. And of course, it will start off with layoffs at will, at the discretion of the OMB and the president. Could start off simply as simple layoffs, firings, and those jobs never coming back to reduce the federal employment levels. So what President couldn't do with Doge, he can now do. And Democrats, you handed it to him. Now, federal employees that are still required to work and are working and are not impacted by the shutdown, as soon as this is all rectified, they get all their back pay. And some people in government agencies get paid regardless because it comes out of different appropriations. Yeah, it's devastating to federal workers. I mean, I don't know how devastating it is that, national parks might be shut down. I mean, they're beautiful and everything like that, but they're not putting bread on the table or dictating the price of gasoline. So, but certainly the FAA, yeah, we want to see them going. There are parts of the USDA that could be affected. That should worry some people. I agree with that. Russell Voigt will yield massive power to make budget recommendations to the president. Now, I said during in December of 2024, when these lists of names of who the president wanted to be put in charge of offices, and I said Russell Voigt's name and Stephen Miller were two names that would meet the most amount of concerned resistance. Robert Kennedy had one because it was a political resistance. But these guys, Voigt and Miller, these were tough guys. And the Democrats knew that these two guys in the offices that they were being appointed to could spell real trouble for the Democrats. And now you have empowered them. It's going to be this. I see the shutdown lasting 3 weeks. I see it lasting 3 weeks. Might end sooner. It depends on, that, Schumer and Jeffries. But you have your AOCs putting a lot of pressure on Schumer. A lot of pressure on Schumer. I am sure Schumer would have elected to cut some type of deal that was workable. But since he was being the puppet master AOC, Trump wasn't going to deal with him. Nope. Nope. And Senator Schumer said their action of resistance shows America that they are a force to be dealt with. The Democrats speaking about cuts to programs that are not even in the time frame of this budget. Some going into January 2026 and others running through December 2025. And those are EBT doesn't run out until 2026 of January. And December is when the premiums on Obamacare run out. And of course, Trump's one big beautiful bill took a lot of this stuff and tossed it away because it was being given to illegals. Here illegally. That's why they're called illegals. And no one wanted to really address that in the Democrats, in the Democratic circle. They were all for these people. They let them sneak into the country. They allowed the borders to be porous. So they can't abandon them now. But Trump said during his campaign what he was going to do, and is now doing it. And the Democrats think that they can stop him by shutting down the government. Bad move. Bad move. They stopped talking about Epstein now for a while. And this now is the flavor of the day, which it really should be the flavor of the day, because Epstein did nothing for anyone. So it was meaningless and bore no fruit for the Democrats other than them saying, Epstein, Epstein, Epstein. And now the Republican gets to say, in all that time of Epstein, 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 you could have been working with us on this bill, but instead you were more concerned with Epstein, that the people wanted to know this. And instead of you going, well, the people really need Medicaid or food stamps or some of these programs. Instead of that, you were more concerned about Epstein. Because that is how the Republicans are going to play this. And you'll have people go, well, they could have done both. I mean, the Epstein was over here and this was over here. Well, why couldn't they do both? Because the Democrats chose not to. You picked the wrong horse. Picked the wrong horse, fellas. 3 Democrats of the Democratic caucus, Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada, and Angus King of Maine, voted with Republicans to fund the government. The bipartisan spending bill failed to clear the upper chamber's 60-vote threshold during the vote of 55 to 45. And there was talk, of course, the Senate and everyone else changing those rules just to say the majority. I don't believe that that is a good idea for the Republicans nor for the Democrats to do. You don't change the rules to try to game your way. Let the Democrats fall on the sword here. It's on them. Don't change the rules and then give the Democrats ammunition to go, well, see, we were all against this, and they pushed it through, and they changed the rules. They changed the rules on us. So I don't think that's a good idea. I heard talk of them doing that and changing that and going with the majority rule only. And no, stick to your guns. Stick to your guns. And you have Rand Paul on the Republican side going against this bill and a few others, on a matter of principle. Well, and that's good. Good to have principles. But Rand Paul now is another one under the Trump administration that's irrelevant. And he's a smart guy. I like Rand Paul. But at some point, you got to pick a side. And if you're really worried about the people, then you want to see stuff that is good in the One Big Beautiful Bill go forward. And we shall see. But I give this up to 3 weeks. And after 3 weeks, I think the Democrats and the Republicans, there'll be some talk and there will be some movement. I guarantee you that. And the Democrats will jump on there and say, see, you gotta fight. Because if they do not get something, it's going to be 3 weeks of misery for a lot of people because you couldn't come through. So it's going to be interesting. This is going to be interesting. This isn't like normal, and Trump shut the government down before, so. It used to be a really bad word, a really bad thing to have happen. And I remember when they did it, the Republicans did it to Bill Clinton. And told Bill Clinton, we'll pass it, we'll go along with you, but you got to get NAFTA done. And Bill had to sign off on NAFTA. And that's how the Democrats got stuck. Well, you took our jobs away from us. Well, it was a Republican-backed bill and forced onto Bill Clinton. So, to some people out there that say that, I'm biased. I'm not biased. And when I am biased, when I say biased, I'm using facts to make me biased, to say this is why you guys are wrong, or why this goes so far against what we want. It's not being biased, it's being factual. There's a difference out there. But I do appreciate all your comments. Except you, Bob, in New York. Okay. On Friday, the Supreme Court handed down an order that could completely upend the balance of power between Congress and the President. The order effectively permits Trump to cancel $4 billion in foreign aid spending that he is required to spend under an act of Congress, meaning this is money that was appropriated by Congress, given the thumbs up, and Trump comes in, and you can go back, that's like recessive, action. I call it clawback. But there are procedures that you must follow to do that. And there have been times when presidents have done that, we were going to send, all this military aid to Iran, and then Iran changed sides in, 3 weeks, and we go, "Whoa, they're not getting, we're not sending them top line military equipment. The stuff that there is, disable it and get the hell out." So yeah, and any foreign aid that was going there just stopped. But Congress then went back and said, "Yeah, we approve that, Mr. President. We're behind you with that." So if Congress approves it, it's up to Congress to take it back. So these were one of the rulings that I didn't think would the courts would allow. Now this was a 6-3 decision, but in that decision it left open a possibility for. Remember, there is no appeal once the Supreme Court makes a ruling. There is no appeal process. But in their own words, they said it doesn't stop them from revisiting and looking at other portions of what the president is trying to claw back on. I would say that the precedent now set by the Supreme Court is that the president can overstep Congress. I'm not happy about that. And they used executive powers as a means of doing it, and some other clauses inside the contract, inside the Constitution, which is a contract, to defend their position. And I said before, I call him as I see him. And I didn't think that he could do that. He could if he followed the steps set forth by Congress. And again, but you know what? You would not have gotten that through Congress. We didn't win enough seats to push it that hard. So he just stepped over it and fought it. And he goes, well, the money's spent. If I lose it, I haven't lost anything. And those rules stay in effect, and all right, but if I win it, now I can do this, and any president can do this, and I got the $4 billion back. He had nothing to lose. Nothing to lose. And this is Donald Trump's thinking. And I've said this before in podcasts. You could do certain things, but should you do certain things? And where other presidents said, yeah, I could probably do that and get away with it, and it would be a constitutional issue, not a crisis, but a constitutional issue. And if I lost it, I lost it. But presidents don't like losing to the Supreme Court, because that's almost a slap on the hand. Trump doesn't care about that. It's just, do I win? And again, the Democrats do not, they, after years of Trump, don't understand that. They just keep going to their old playbook, except people like Fetterman and some others that say, hey, you keep going there and you keep failing. That's the sign of being crazy. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So, and even with this budget proposal, it would only end, November 21st. It's 7 weeks. I mean, that I don't think will last 7 weeks, but I think Trump is, well, he's willing to go. He's willing to throw the fists. All right. Now, with the budget behind us and how I say we can settle it, get in there and just say, hey, we don't want to see Americans hurt. We're going to go with this, and we're going to fight this in November. And we're going to do our job. And instead of doing that, they decided just to throw it down now. Very foolish. Very foolish. Because now you're going to take this fight into an election year. Good luck with that. All right. Immigration officials found out nearly half of all immigrants in the Minneapolis-St. Paul Twin Cities areas were found to have committed some form of immigration fraud during a recent sweep by immigration authorities. And this was officials revealed Tuesday. Some of the things the officers discovered encountered blatant marriage fraud, visa overstay, people claiming to work as businesses that can't be found, forged documents, abuse of the H-1B visa program, abuse of the F-1 visa program, and many other discrepancies. And Director Joseph B. Edlow told reporters Tuesday. Officials didn't point to any specific group, but the Twin Cities has seen a massive uptick in Somali refugees and immigrants in recent years, with more than 82,000 from East African countries living in Minnesota. Now, to be factual in that statement, you must understand that those Somalians were relocated to the Minneapolis area. It wasn't like they all came over and they go, we all want to live in, Minnesota. And now think about this for a second. What way to get more people into the House of Representatives? By shoving in more people. So they didn't have to immigrate over from Somalia. They came over on a refugee status and were brought over. They were taken. A lot of these people weren't even asked, do you want to live in, they were just taken out, because if they stayed in Somalia, they were going to be chopped to pieces. So, it's hard. I don't want the impression from my conversation to think that they, all got off the boat in New York or wherever and said, Minnesota is the place you ought to be. That wasn't the case. They were dropped off there. So, a lot of fraud. And when I say a lot of fraud, that means a lot of deportation. So, oh, and who represents that area? Omar? Some others? Who's the governor of Minnesota? Oh, yeah. Tim Walz. So, little shakeup over there. All right. More fallout from, of course, Charlie Kirk's statements. Climate scientist Michael Mann has resigned from the University of Pennsylvania, UPenn, after fallout from his controversial comments he posted following the assassination of Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk. Man went on social media spree in the wake of the murder, sarcastically describing the assassination as white on white violence and reposting multiple inflammatory remarks about the conservative leader, including one that referred to Kirk as the head of Trump's Hitler Youth. Despite later attempts to backtrack, Mann has now resigned from his role as Vice Provost of Climate Science Policy and Action. Now, was he wrong in saying white on white violence? Because that's what was happening, or what we knew at the time. So we don't really know if it was white on white violence, but he came out and said it. And it goes to show you that even a renowned scientist can make some foolish assumptions. And can you believe a climate scientist could make some foolish assumptions and statements? Because I didn't know that Trump had a Hitler Youth. So, yeah. So he resigned from his role. I do not think he resigned from the college, but that will come soon enough. And this guy will lose all credibility, whatever credibility he had. And that's why I tell people stay off of social media. I realize how much fun it is, how much, you get instant gratification. But when you do things like that, you're not looking for a dialogue. He's looking for people to go out there and do more violence by calling it a Hitler Youth group. If you want to have dialogue, then I feel that social media is a good place to have it. Like this, a dialogue. Except with Bob in New York. I tell him what he needs to know. And deep down, he knows it. As I said before, he worships me. But all joking aside, social media is a great place to have a dialogue. But you have to watch out with your opinions. And if you don't put facts behind your opinion, that's when it turns into rhetoric. And you could be wrong on some of your facts and then can change your, if it's pointed out. If you say something as fact and, this person said this or did that, and then you find out, oh, that didn't happen, well, then you can come back and correct that. But it's tough to correct head of Trump's Hitler Youth. You walked off the plank. There's no coming back from that. And as much as he tried to come back from. You can't come back from that. The milk is already out of the carton. It's spilled. You can't come back from that. And I tell people, if you're retired like I am, what are you going to do? Going to call me ignorant? I raised 4 children. You think I haven't been called stupid or ignorant? I have 2 of my best friends that called me stupid and ignorant in almost every phone conversation. But I don't control their lives. I'm not out there for a million people to come back at and go to a company and go, hey, fire that guy. Well, look what this guy just said. And you know what? Even though he said it from his home, he works for you. He represents you. You ask Jimmy Kimmel. So you have to watch out in what you say and weigh your words carefully if you're employed by someone. If you are an independent and don't answer to anyone, then you can do that. A Scott Adams, who has a fantastic podcast. If anyone knows who Scott Adams is, look him up. And you can find him on Locals. You can find him on YouTube. Brilliant, brilliant Democrat. Yeah, Democrat. And you know why? Because he uses common sense. And he got canceled. But you know why he's successful, even though they canceled him? Because he has common sense. He was handed lemons and made lemonade. Anthony Cumia, former Compound Media, and now on the ABC network on Sundays at 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Controversial? Shock jock who got fired. Now he's on terrestrial radio again. On his podcast, he could be as controversial as he wants, but now he's got to kind of watch it a bit because, now one ties into the other. So he can't be as controversial as some people are or would like to be. See, I'm not controversial because I'm using stories out of the news. I'm not making or finding these stories out. I'm not breaking these stories. And I turn them and look at them from both angles. Now, I am conservatively biased, so I will look at the conservative edge points here. But I don't disregard the progressive edge points. This is lately they haven't been making any. So, another Charlie Kirk fallout. And there'll be more. There's a lot more out there coming. You're going to see teachers, a lot more teachers that put stuff out there that are going to be called out and looked at. And there are people that constantly comb uh, social medias looking for anything, and they pop up, they look at it, and they could trace it back. And you know, I tell people, be careful. Social media can kill you. And the thing is, kids today, it's going to be there forever. So when they're tossing the N word around, or the Nazi word around, or whatever else word they're tossing around, that's going to follow them. That's going to follow them. All right. This is 40 minutes into this. Federal District Judge Elaine Cannon is back in the news. And she has refused to release sealed reports on the Trump classified documents case. Now, when the term, and this was out of a news article, I forget who wrote it. I think I read it on MSN, but it wasn't an MSN generated story. Might have been out of the Washington, one of the Washington Examiner, maybe. Maybe, I said, I'm not certain. And they use things like refuse to release. No, she sealed files. And now it's currently facing pressure from outside groups on an appeal court to either release the report or provide a reason why she is keeping it. And their thing said hidden, and I kind of changed it to sealed. See how two words can interchange one another in a meaning? Words matter. As early as 2025, Judge Allen sealed certain files related to classified documents case against former President Trump. And this was done to manage the disclosure of sensitive information and protect the privacy of potential witnesses. Now, there's her reason. And unless a court goes, well, all right, we'll set up someone to look at that to see if that's a potential problem. I mean, doing it. She's a judge. She's a federal district judge, right? I just want to make sure when I said that. Yeah. Very few things you're going to question her on that. She knows the difference between sensitive information that is to protect the privacy of potential witnesses, because this case can be reopened. Now, if the case is reopened, that opens up a whole different thing. Then she can give it to parties that need to know. But then the other party can say this is the poison fruit, and let's see what happens. Because remember, this case was shut down, but not with prejudice. So it could be reopened again, folks. All right. Try to wrap this up in about 10 minutes. Yep, I'm still going good there. Got to look around every once in a while that everything's doing what it's supposed to do. Chicago Mayor Johnson praises important woman who killed New Jersey state trooper. Can't make this shit up, folks. Johnson defends a social media post by the Chicago Teachers Union, calling the convicted murderer a key figure in the Black liberation movement. Look up the policeman that um, uh, that Joanne Schumer murdered. And why the police had stopped her. This is why school unions are going to become decimated. Because if they're praising a cop killer, they're giving money from union, and they could have a PAC fund for it. And that PAC fund can be looked at. And do you know who oversees all unions? Come on. Department of Labor. And you have to fill in some very specific forms. I think those forms need to be looked at and reconciled. And since you file a form with the federal government and a federal agency, they have the right to question you on it and look at stuff and come in and do what's called an audit. So the teacher union supported, as does the mayor, Brandon Johnson of Chicago, who's broke, who city's out of control with murder. Joanne Schumer, a former Black Panther, Black Liberation Army member, an insurrectionist. All right? That's insurrection, folks. Convicted in the 1973 killing of a New Jersey state trooper. Any wonder why the Democratic numbers are so low? Democrats, can you figure it out yet? I mean, do you really need to figure this out? Does it need to be explained to you? I want Schumer asked this question. I want Jeffries asked this question. I want to see the senator of New Jersey ask if she was a hero. Let's see what Cory Booker has to say. How about Al Green? How about Auntie Maxine? I want all those people to go on record and ask them, yes or no, is she a hero? Yes or no? Now, for those of you that don't know who she was a Black Liberation member who murdered a police trooper in New Jersey in the commission, I think, of a bank robbery. And she had escaped prison and was whisked away to Cuba. who gave her sanctuary, and she died there. And now she's being hailed as a great person. She was also the godmother of the rapper Schumer. So the Democrats who are supporting a socialist communist for the mayor of New York also are supporting, those same people are supporting the killer of a New Jersey state trooper and how important this person was to the cause. Democrats, do you understand how bad you're going to lose in 2026? Do you, anyone on your team going, yeah, this has to stop? Is there anyone running the DNC? Or has the DNC become so fragmented with individual infighting clawing for the top position that they've lost sight? Is there anyone there? Because if you're going to have this type of DNC, if you're going to have these type of Democrats running the show, what do you think is going to happen in 2028? How are you going to reverse all this? How are you going to say, yeah, I know what we said over here, and okay, that person lost the election, or this happened over here, and that didn't happen. No, but you put it in play. Instead of just going, no, we don't support that guy. We don't stop him from running. He could run as an independent, but we're not going to support this guy. You know. And not that I would have supported Cuomo for New York's mayor. Because he was no better in allowing, no bail, and all this other crap. He was no better than that guy. So, anyone listening in New York and you're going in the city of New York, vote for Curtis Sliwa. Because then at least you could say, hey, we tried a guy all the way to the right and he was horrible and it was terrible. Maybe a guy to the left is the way we need to go. But going from the left to even more left to even more left, yeah. And you keep doubling down on your failure. It's like a gambler who's trying, I'm trying to dig my way out of this, and they just get deeper, 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 deeper down. Sometimes you got to cut your losses. So, all right. During the Secretary of War's meeting in Virginia with generals, a federal employee was taken into custody following an active shooter hoax at New Jersey's largest military base, which is Fort Dix. Now, they did not release the name of this individual, and it was a federal employee. He wasn't a military person. It was a federally employed person who called in a hoax as an active shooter on a large military base, which automatically everyone down the chain of military bases goes on alert and lockdown positions because we don't know if this is a concerted effort. We don't know if this is just someone there, but they go on a much higher heightened alert. The person that did that on government property, if found guilty, they should go to jail a long, long, long time. Yeah, we can't have that. And they might have thought it was funny, or ha ha ha, look what we did, ha ha ha. I hate whoever. I hate liberals. I hate uh, uh, MAGA. I hate. They did this for a reason, and whatever the reason, it's not justifiable. So I'm not saying if this guy was a MAGA, go light on him or something. No, throw the book at him and make it stick. Not because he's MAGA or not because he's a progressive, but because he violated the law. And see, that's why the justice has the blindfold around. So religion, color, political viewpoint does not come into play. This comes into play. Now, I know you people can say, but John, you say this is in play, yet the Supreme Court overruled a congressional law. And I would say, in your eyes, that's the way that happened. And I could see how you can see it that way. But if you take a look at the power of the president under the executive branch, you could see how it could be pushed a certain way. And this comes back to should or could. Yeah, and I would agree that that it's not a good look. It's not a good look. All right, I'm going to finish this up as I always do. If you can give to a charity, please give to a charity. Just make sure it's a charity of your choice and it's a valid charity. Give to a food bank. And if you go to a food bank with food, bless you. But ask them, what other things do you need here? And then you can go to friends and relatives and say, hey, you got old coats, you got this, you got that, and we can get going with that. Say a prayer. Prayer does work no matter what Democrats tell you. And with that, I'll be editing this show up quickly. This will be a heavy edited. There'll be comments all the way through. But we'll get that out as soon as possible. Today is Wednesday, so it is a Socrates Station visit for Fat Cat, and that's in Socrates, South Carolina. Great restaurant, great bar. Nothing to look at, folks. It's in a strip mall. But you can't beat their food. You can't beat their prices. And you can't beat the people that are there. And every walk of life walks in through that door. And you know what happens? We all laugh and we giggle. And very rarely do we talk politics. But we just have a good time. So I want to make sure I get this out the door. I got to help someone with their homework tonight. I'm supposed to go work on a car today, but I'm not going to work on the car today. I'll be working on the car tomorrow. Okay, with that, let me just wrap this all up. This is now into 1 hour and 1 minute. I did it. And with that, I am going to fade. Oh, well, hold on. Again, there was a correction that I made. I want Bob to know in New York that when I said there was no insurrection, yes, there were people convicted of insurrection, an act of akin to an insurrection. But yes, Bob, you were correct. But the whole definition of being plied, calling it an insurrection, that's going to be looked at a little bit later on down the road. All right. And I always said if you point something out that makes sense, I'm gonna comment on it. If you say, he says I'm wrong all the time. Yeah, no. Sometimes, but not often. All right, now I'm gonna fade to black.